And
Vehicles and gas.
the meeting will
What's
commence.
today's agenda? I didn't think.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
This is going to be a relatively short meeting today because there is beer down the street at Aquatic, and there will be a couple of individuals down there talking about things that we're interested in. IAs, so we might find ourselves decamped to there.
Go there.
And whatnot.
So moved, or is that a motion?
No, I'm telling you that the goal is, we only have one real strong item on the agenda. And the other one is
Latest DEP data.
Yeah.
more of an exercise I'm going to throw at everybody on the board to come back at our next meeting and delve into a little bit deeper. But with that, Steve, you're first on the agenda with the Board of Health, the IA regulations versus the TMDL targets.
Christie's going to start the PowerPoint.
Am I running the whole thing for you?
Do you need that?
Or are you coming up here?
I'd like to do it from here.
That's fine.
As you all most likely know, the Board of Health recently passed a requirement for IAs in certain circumstances, and I thought it had a number of implications for this committee, so that's mainly what I'm going to be talking about. Go to the first slide. This is just background. This is nothing the Board of Health did. This is numbers that I got from Kristen and Steve. And you can look at this as a bar graph, but I really want you to look at it as a map of Falmouth. Take Falmouth, take away all the water bodies, streets, parks, conservation land, and just leave it with lots. Make all the lots square, the same size, about the size of the intersection of two of those heavy lines, and arrange it in a square grid of about 150 by 150, and you'll get the 23,000, 24,000 lots in Falmouth, and then arrange them in these categories. The bottom bar is existing sewers. That's not going to change. Right above it is sewers in progress, which we know is going to happen. And then proposed sewers, which is subject to a lot of variables. And then coming down from the top, the non-nitrogen sensitive parcels, about 5,000. And then there are the IA, the nitrogen sensitive parcels. The biggest group is the ones that would need IAs to achieve the TMDL, given that number of sewers. And then the ones that wouldn't, the lucky people that wouldn't have to put in IAs in that scenario. And Steve has mentioned that with the correct me if I'm wrong, with the outfall, there might be the opportunity for more sewers, in which case the line above the proposed sewers would go up, reducing the number of IAs, and the line at the top of the IAs would come down because each sewered lot can replace a couple of IA lots. So that's the background. And the reason I like it this way is because these aren't just data on nitrogen. You can think of these as people and the economic impact or not on them. And if we go to the next slide, the Board of Health regulation requires best available nitrogen reducing technology, IAs, in any construction where there's going to be increased flow, an addition or a brand new house. And I think we should thank the Board of Health for their diligence and courage to make this issue real. I was hoping they would be here so they would know I was not just knocking them. I do think the regulation has a technical flaw, which we'll get into, but that is partly the fault of the Water Quality Committee for not having a plan for the town after over 15 years. We should be embarrassed and we should get to work. Let me go to the next slide. By the way, all the sloppy graphics are mine and the good ones are Kristen. The advantage of having it square like this is just as if you're mowing your lawn, it doesn't matter whether you mow east-west, back and forth, or north-south. It's the same amount of mowing, and you cut the grass, right, or painting your basement floor or something. So those were all those horizontal bars on the overall figures. But now I'm having the Board of Health regulation come in from the left, and that's how many, they asked the building department how many permits are issued each year. And the building department told them about 100. But building permits aren't correlated with nitrogen sensitivity or sewers or anything. That's just across the town. So some of those 100, the building permits that meet the economic criteria that the Board of Health has set. So some of that, for instance, the ones that are in a non-nitrogen sensitive parcel, the Board of Health admits that it would be stupid to make somebody put an IA in there, or where there's an existing sewer or sewer in progress. So even though they're doing 100 a year, even after 20 years, they've only painted the map out to where those lines show. So this is an excellent pilot project, but it's not, in my sense of the word significant, a significant reduction of nitrogen. I mean, it's a good thing, and you have to do it, but eventually you have to do the whole other thing, too. So if you can go to the next slide. I guess I said the first one. No, I guess I said all of that. And go to the next slide. The problem is that the areas that are planned for sewers but not yet funded are not exempted. And those property owners will have to pay first for an expensive IA and then a few years later for a sewer connection. The Board of Health will say, well, that could be 20 years. Yes, it could, but remember, this whole thing has to be done in 20 years. So if we have a plan that's consistent with DEP, some of those sewers are going to have to be 5, some in 10, some in 15, some in 20. And if you or the town were being double billed that way, would you be amused? Steve says putting an IA is like burying a brand new car in your backyard. So you have to bury a brand new car in your backyard, at the end of 20 years, throw it away and connect to the sewer. And at the Board of Health hearing, the rebuttal was that the town is not trusted to build the sewers. And that's on video, if you don't believe me. If that mistrust is justified, and it might be, it's a sad comment on our slow progress on the plan. Next slide. I submit that the solution is that we need to work as quickly as possible to outline the proposed areas for sewers and IAs under both scenarios of outfall and no outfall. And just to show that I'm not being completely arbitrary, you could, instead of, I mean, they may be saying, well, most new construction is rich out-of-towners who can well afford this because they're building a multi-million-dollar house. Okay, but you could also imagine some kind of tax on new construction and then use that money for something else dealing with nitrogen that isn't then thrown away 20 years later. Next slide. This is the elephant in the room. By the way, fascinating thing what ChatGPT does. You see there are 6 generic old white guys and one younger guy with dark hair, or I said white guys with white hair, and there's but it's obviously us if you look at the clothing and everything, but it's weird if you look at the faces close up. If you go to the next slide.
I think the ChatGPT makes us look absolutely handsome and much younger than we really are.
Can you get ChatGPT to dye our hair black?
Yes, I could.
Orange for Halloween.
Please do that.
Yeah.
And so the elephant is the scale of the problem. How to install all this in 20 years?
Yeah.
How does the town afford it? And how do we apportion the costs fairly? We need a dialogue with town financial experts. And should those required to install IAs pay any more than those required to connect to the sewer? We go to the next slide. We know what major technologies we'll be using: sewers, outdoor IAs, and maybe UDs, which I call indoor IAs. There are other technologies: oysters, inlet widening, PRBs. They're all either running fine without us, like oysters, or of known limited contribution. There's no time to wait for additional new magic. And we could have a lot of the time saved getting interim reports on those and spend it thinking about the elephant problem. The outfall project seems to be going well. Mass Tech Center will be doing the UD pilot project. If they achieve Banner status, then it's a no-brainer that they can be voluntary indoor IAs. If they don't achieve Banner, but they're reasonable, we'll have to think hard how to include them that's fair to the people that do it and to the people that don't do it. And we need to focus on areas and funding for sewers and IAs, quantitatively and at scale, effective, affordable, and fair. And the next slide. The overall planning needs to be done by us and town management. Only the details can be contracted out. You don't hire an architect without, to say, design a house for you, without first knowing the desired size, features, location, and funds available. I don't see why this is any different. And the next slide. That's it. ChatGPT can turn the elephant around for you, too.
Can you come back a few slides? Go slowly, I'll tell you where. I think you just went by it. So my first and foremost comment, Steve, is we're going to town meeting to get some money to start doing the watershed plans. The watershed plans that are going to be prepared through the oversight of the DPW and the wastewater department, okay? The expectation is that the watershed plans will identify how it gets done in 20 years and everything. Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to frame what this committee does or doesn't do, and that's where I want to go to with the little thing I stuck on the agenda. But we did an exercise over the last year, taking, for lack of a better word, the nuclear option inside the watershed plan requirements that says that you have to have a 20-year plan and it gets monitored every 5 years. And if the DEP determines that you're not achieving whatever you think you're going to achieve in a 5 or 10-year period, they get to say, you got to go to what is called the contingency plan, which is sewers and IAs, no land use reductions, no stormwater changes, no oysters, nothing, okay? Kristen, utilizing the math and the formula intrinsic to the MEP about nitrogen and flows and everything else, we sat and we saw watershed by watershed what the contingency plan looks like. Watershed planning will produce a different plan, and as you pointed out in your earlier graph, as that develops, even just can you come back to the very early graph, the proposed sewers, IAs? So just staying right here, Steve, in the watershed planning going on, the IAs to achieve TMDL is anticipated to come down. I don't know whether it'll come down by 10% or come down by 15%, but it will come down for things like, accounting for actual attenuation, distance from receiving water bodies and everything else. That's going to be done by people who have the time and the resources to do that analysis. We get an outfall, the proposed sewage changes, and then you had another slide where you talked about whether there is an outfall or not. And by the way, this is good stuff.
No, I just said that verbally. This is, the only other slide is this with the
Okay.
Board of Health.
Yeah, okay.
Proposal on it.
Sorry, okay. So, but again, the idea through the watershed planning will be, if we don't have an outfall, what does it look like? I'm presuming this, Amy, if I've got this wrong with where, because Amy Lowell is sitting back here, she's been working with, developing scope and the consultant and coming up with a budget to go to town meeting on all of this, Steve, okay? So yes, the things you say need to be done, and it's time to get them done. I would agree, but I don't think that we are in the lead for looking at individual watersheds and saying what does or doesn't have to happen. I think the watershed plan develops, and we are likely to get some form of update and provide feedback to where that planning process is going. Okay?
Fair enough. I still think there are coarser or global or more preliminary decisions that it's totally appropriate for this committee to address and then to interact with the public and the select board and management and so on about, such as making that part of the Board of Health proposed installations that seem duplicative and, to me, incredibly wasteful of money, to make that work out. Not just by giving them the knowledge right away, but by, I mean, they did that because they're frustrated that we're not moving fast enough, I think. I mean, that's their stated goal, unless there's some hidden agenda. And so I think that's legitimate, and that we could discuss. I mean, you have a bunch of creative people here, and we can take input from the community, which you can't expect your contractors to have, how to solve that problem.
Other members of the board. You guys want to buck up, play rock, scissors, stones?
So I have a neighbor who's in this situation where they want to do some work on a house, and it's going to cause them to fall in the new Board of Health regulations to put in an IA, but they're also on Great Pond, but they're on the Athabasca Peninsula, so probably going to happen in a few years, but not right away. There's no monies yet directed, so they're in this double jeopardy position where they're going to have to do both. So what I'm wondering is, and I'm still sort of curious why the Board of Health didn't really entertain this, is that for the watershed plan, that should be done within a year or two. From what I'm hearing, if the monies are directed there, we're going to put together an integrated plan that looks at all 14 NSAs. At that point, we should have a good idea of what homes are being sewered, right? That's the point of that watershed plan. So why couldn't the Board of Health, for those homes that have the potential to be sewered, grant them a little bit of time before requiring them to go to an IA? Because we'll know soon enough whether they're going to be in a sewer area or not. And by waiting a few years, it's not going to cause a huge issue, I think, with nitrogen entering the estuaries for some small subset of houses. But that's not the way it played out. They're going to have to pay for the IA and then have to pay to, at least the easement for the sewering.
Thank you.
Not the hookup. And I brought this.
That's my point precisely.
I brought this up at the first meeting that we had in the senior center, but they just told me that they're not changing. So I think for people that are in that situation, it's going to be very financially painful. They're not all multimillionaires building, million-dollar mansions. That's sometimes the case, but not always the case. So, but what recourse do we have now to do anything about it?
Part of the reason that I'm doing this is because I got that same rebuttal twice. And I thought, well, maybe they think Leighton is this weirdo who's just ranting. If I could get this committee to agree with me, or they might listen.
Ed?
This article, or first item on the agenda, really is overlapping into number 2, which is great, because I think this is strategic planning for where does this committee go, where does this town go, what do we recommend the town does over the next 20 years. And most of us won't be here to see what happens, but, we hope to.
You look pretty healthy to me.
I feel good. I expect to be. I was talking about you. But anyway, a couple of things, just, a minor technical point. The non-impacted NSA parcels, 19, let's call it 2,000, as I understand it, those are ones that are in the NSA, and because when we went our geo-boundary exercise, we said, nah, those don't need an IA. We've got enough with the other parcels and the potential sewering, so we won't need that. However, the Board of Health in their new regulation ignored that. If you're in the NSA, they don't know from geo-boundaries. If you're in the NSA, you are impacted by this regulation, which I think the numbers and the historical data, I've gone through a lot of the building department records, and, the 100 a year is a good number because it does have more like 100, 120, and so it gives that allowance for those that are in the non-NSA parcels. So just technical point, those non-impacted NSA parcels, that's not truly correct. What the Board of Health did, and I think people need to understand the implications of this mandate, is the first step in a multi-stage process of triggers requiring IAs. It will not end here. A lot of towns have more stringent IA mandates that include things like a time trigger of 10 or 15 years, when you will be required, regardless of changes to your flow. They include transfer of title triggers. So if the house is sold at any point from the moment the edict went in, going forward, thou shalt install an IA. Tisbury, Oak Bluffs, they have that already. And some other towns on the Cape, I think Wallfleet does, are considering it. So this is only the first step. What it does do is define the locales that are impacted, the NSAs, after months of verbiage discussions at the Board of Health meetings of what little tweaks, how much of the parcels in the area, and all this other stuff. So they've really made a great stride in defining the areas of impact. It's the NSAs, regardless of our geo-boundary concepts, which we put a lot of effort into. So that's, and the other thing that happens here is that 100 a year, there is no town-provided subsidy. That precedent is now locked in this regulation. And by the way, that precedent has been set over the last 8 or 10 years when people have been installing IAs in Falmouth, of which there's somewhere between 200 and 300 already in the ground, already there. Most of them aren't very good. They're probably performing in the 25 or not much better range, but they are.
And they were voluntary.
In some cases, they weren't all voluntary. Some were mandated.
Just if I can. So there is a zoning overlay district called the Water Resource Districts, and any subdivision with 5 homes in it, inside an overlay district, was obligated to put in an IA. Now, a number of developments that went 40B said that's a town regulation, we don't have to follow it. But the bulk of them that went in came in under that regulation.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to clarify where it came from.
So there are 200 to 300 of them already in the ground, no subsidy. If they work their tax correctly, they could have got some subsidy via state tax credit for that. But the requirements are stringent, and Jonathan's done a lot of work, and others with our legislators, so that there is a bill pending in committee now.
No, I'm all in favor of Jonathan's bill. In fact, I came up with part of the initial idea, but that makes no distinction between sewers and IAs.
Correct.
That's just between rich and poor. It's a good thing, but it has nothing to do with any unfairness of IAs versus sewers.
No. but it addresses the subsidy requirement or request or hope for a lot of people that are impacted by this. So that's a priority issue for this committee to work with the town fathers and other communities to try and make that a reality. But understanding what I'm saying, the impact of this regulation is groundbreaking for the town of Falmouth. It is mandating something that is new. It doesn't have subsidies. It requires everybody in an NSA, which is roughly 80% of the town, to do this if they're not in the sewered area. And I agree with, Jonathan's and your concerns about people that, they might be 15 years away from getting a sewer in Acapesket. Without the outfall, that isn't going to happen with any speed. And the outfall is not going to happen tomorrow. 5, 7, 10 years from now. In the meantime, we can be planning for when it gets there. But if it doesn't, we have got a major problem as a community. So this is great to trigger a discussion going forward and put some criticality to it that we need to move forward. We're an advisory board. We've got some people that have good ideas and do a lot of digging and understand the problem. So our charge is to advise the select board and thereby the community as to what we think is the best path forward. And yeah, I agree with you. We got to hurry up and do it. But understand the limitations of the fiscal reality, the permitting reality. Without the outfall, what are we going to do? We got to have it. That's a got to have, and a lot of people, and Amy especially, has done a tremendous amount of work to get it to where it is, and we need to push it
disputes
forward.
that. I'm just saying,
No,
I don't
so-
think it requires any input, any substantial time spent by this committee. It's out there being done.
Well, but I think I disagree with you, because I think the mission of this committee should be to pursue that, advocate for it in any and every forum possible, including the community. We're going to have to do a selling job to, hey, folks, we want to spend, $75, $80 million, $90 million on this.
Fair enough, okay.
And also to get the permitting process through. The Buzzards Bay Coalition wrote a wonderful letter of support to DEP explaining the need and their very stringent and strong support of the entire concept. We need to advocate for that. I think that's a big part of our mission, to help those, to help that tax credit change that would be very important to people of limited means. Go for it. That's what we got to do. And I think that brings us right into Section 2, but we've overlapped some. That's all.
I just want to see if anybody, go ahead.
I just want to thank Ed for one part of that and emphasize. Thank you for emphasizing the fact that this sets a precedent for no subsidy for IAs. I totally agree with that, and I don't think that's a good thing. But I think that there are people that don't care what the homeowners pay, but do care what the town spends, who are very happy setting that precedent in what I submit as kind of a sneaky way.
Other committee members who want to chime in on what Steve has put in front of us?
So I'd just like to say, first of all, I think this really crystallizes very nicely what we've been moving towards for the past, since I've been on the committee. And, there's clear strategies here. And I don't think when I first arrived on this committee, we could have broken it down by parcel like this. Maybe I'm naive about that. And with the work that Kristen's been doing on the watershed plans, we're even getting to the point of having spatially explicit breakdowns. And so people have made a lot of nice comments. The one place where I wonder if we couldn't have some impact, given the large number of parcels that are going to end up having IAs in order to meet TMDLs, is lobbying for the UD technology, the criteria for best available nitrogen removing for UD technology to be different than just the concentration. Because I'm not convinced that if concentration is used in the effluent, it's going to succeed. But from a mass loading point of view, I think it will succeed very nicely. So DEP needs to somehow modify their criteria. I mean, that is an elephant that, if we can't, the liability of putting in 7,600 units at $50,000 or $60,000 or $70,000 a piece is just huge. And if you can do it for $15,000, I think a lot of people would elect to do it.
Yes, well, I came away, you can ask John too, I came away from this recent Rich Earth Summit out at the Mass Test Center. And I mean, I started out as a cynic about UDs. I'm no longer a cynic. I can see a lot of people going for that because the price differential is huge.
Exactly.
I think, though, that you only have to read the Falmouth police log in the Enterprise to know that not everybody is well-meaning. And if you just think that those are a bunch of poor drug addicts or something, what about Bernie Madoff and other people where you get into the political world?
Where does Bernie live? I haven't seen his name in the police report.
No, I'm saying,
What is, I don't get your
I'm saying
reference.
there's a lot of,
Who's Bernie Madoff?
a lot of bad behavior that isn't, you serious?
Yeah, you just threw out a name. I have no idea what you just said.
Oh, wait, so let him finish.
There are a lot of famous white-collar criminals, and there was somebody that...
You worried
had
about
worked for a
yellow-collar
local-
criminals? I'm not sure.
There was somebody that worked for a local business as their bookkeeper, embezzled thousands of dollars over the year. So I don't want anyone to claim that everybody is good.
No one's claiming that.
Okay. But I
Oh, take a
think,
vote. How many people think that not everybody's good?
so
You can quote us on that, Katie.
the catch with the UD regulations is it has to have something enforceable. Because otherwise, there's a huge temptation to spend a much smaller amount of money.
Now you're getting
and
into the
then abuse
weeds.
it.
Do you make every toilet a UD toilet or something like that?
I'm just
Absolutely.
saying, I agree with you, but
Yeah.
the task is to come up with,
But the
workable rule.
larger point that I was trying to make, you tried to make this point a couple meetings ago, was no one's going to do it if it doesn't count as an IA, and you have to also put in an IA. No one's going to do.
yes, that's correct.
So there's this huge cost savings that's hanging out there that will not be achieved unless DEP is willing to accept UD as an IA. And that hinges on concentration, and especially if water use declines, if you have a UD, which it may, which they're claiming it does, then you're never going to get to the concentrations necessary to qualify as success.
They have said they'll take,
I just want to jump in. Last time I checked inside the town of Falmouth's Board of Health regulations, there was a provision in there that if you were not making the permitted target for an IA system, you could come back and demonstrate through a mass calculation that you were removing a certain percentage.
But will
Okay.
DEP accept that as progress
I don't know. I'm
towards
just
TMDL?
telling you that there's already inside town regulations, that it's not just the concentration. There's the ability, if your system is working properly, but you're not making the concentration, to show the mass balance and show pounds
The
removed.
town is more farsighted than the Commonwealth.
Well, we have George Hofelder on the board.
Right.
So that helps.
Anyway, that's
I just wanted to cover that detail.
just one issue.
John knows this because he sat on the board with me.
I would just like to make one comment. I think we sort of really misidentified the elephant. The elephant is we have a well-developed town model for how we sewer and apportion the costs of that. And we have a long-range town capital plan which identifies how we're going to afford the sewering we're planning for the future. What we don't have is a long-range plan that includes a comparable contribution to the people who are mandated to put in IAs. That's missing, and it seems to me that's the real elephant. So until we convince the town planners that they have to figure out a model that treats the IAs in a proportionate way that we've treated the sewer people, we're destined for failure.
And I'm going to drag Amy in momentarily. My recollection, Amy, is last time that you and I had a side conversation, was that on the whole watershed planning, there was a belief that somebody with some understanding of town economics needed to be involved in development of this overall plan to talk about where the numbers fall and how the numbers get made fairer. Am I misstating anything?
No.
Okay, so it needs to be done, John. I agree with you. Okay, it's a better statement of the elephant in the room, which is how are we going to handle IAs and the costs and the you know the making it balanced somehow. So that will, we go to town meeting, we get some money, we get some people working on this, we start getting feedback of how the variables work or don't work a little bit, okay? So
I hear you agreeing with John and me and the other John, and I think almost everybody, that you want to make IAs a similar burden to the homeowner that sewers are. Because I know that I hear people talking around that.
I'm stumbling on the word similar, because I think that they are both things that will reduce nitrogen. I think the impact and effect on homeowners, as you've well pointed out, fall into different categories, and somebody should do some effort to figure out where the numbers should fall, okay?
But there are people like me that say it should be fair. I don't care how you work out the fairness, but it should be fair. There's a real issue of unfairness. And then I hear other people who talk about it in a sort of sideways way, and I admit we don't know the solution, but I want to hear people at least say that they agree that it ought to be fair, because you have no choice. It's not a volunteer thing whether you do IA or sewer. That's chosen by us and our contractors in the town.
That was a statement.
Are you willing to say that you agree it ought to be fair? Or do you want to stay abstract?
No, I think that we need to be able to strike a balance on the cost to any individual homeowner who either has to put a sewer in or an IA in, so that one party or another is not bearing an unfair burden. Whether or not they're exactly equal, I don't know if we can ever get there.
Not exactly equal, but not grossly far apart. Are you willing to say that?
I feel like I'm being cross-examined.
Well, you are, because when I first realized this a couple of years ago, there was a different, well, I don't know what the title is the town treasurer, the chief financial officer of the town. He retired and has been replaced by someone I have not met or talked to. But at the time I went and talked.
Is that Bernie?
No.
Who is Bernie? You were going to tell me who Bernie was.
You seriously don't remember his name?
Does he live in Falmouth?
No.
No,
Oh,
No,
I think he's in jail.
He's dead.
he's dead.
He died.
did he live in Falmouth and then die?
No. He had nothing to do with Falmouth. Forget it. I'll tell you after. It's a long story. I'm simply saying there's a lot of substantial white-collar crime. In case you didn't like my Falmouth police log story. Now I've forgotten where it
Okay. Amy's got her hand up.
Go ahead.
Let's hear from Amy.
Yes.
She's going to explain who this mythical figure. Oh, I know what it was. There's a thing about Weekend at Bernie's. Is that the guy? Is the guy from the movie?
I don't know whether you're joshing me or you really don't know who he is.
A couple
I
of
don't think he
things.
really knows.
One is, Jonathan, you had said, so I wanted to just defend the Board of, wow, that got a lot louder. I wanted to defend the Board of Health's progress a little bit in that I think that IA systems will reduce the amount of nitrogen going into the coastal ponds, wherever they are. Some, if it's further away, it'll take a little more time for that reduction to be seen. But I understand that their goal is to make progress, and doing that will make some progress. The regulation has a time frame where if they've put in an IA and the sewer comes along, they have an extended period of time where before they have to actually connect to the sewer. So I don't remember the exact time frame, but it's something like 15 years or 20 years or whatever there is.
They still have to pay the betterment.
I'm sorry?
They still have to pay the betterment.
Yes, they do have to pay the betterment. Yep. When the betterment comes along. But the other thing about the cost and the fairness is so on the Board of Health regulation, this new regulation is applying to people who are either, demolishing a house or doing new construction. It's not people who are just sitting there at exactly the same in their property and are forced to change their septic system. They're doing a substantial modification, and then they have to change their septic system. I think the discussion of fairness has become kind of absolute, and I don't think it needs to be quite so stringent. I do also want to say, I think you guys, know that the town has not been allocating funds for IAs in our overall plan, and to do so would be a monumental change, a monumental increase in the cost. So yes, as part of this watershed plan over the next year, we will be looking at plans for each watershed and IA areas and sewers, but I don't want to make a commitment right now that the town has planned to pay for IAs, or that things are going to be exactly fair. Things are never exactly fair, and we will be looking at costs and financing plans. But I think you guys are it sounds like you're sort of teeing up to say that things are going to be a certain way, and I think it's too early to say that. We need to look at the overall cost and figure out what's feasible, and then make these decisions.
One of the things I recall when, one of the learning experiences from doing the Mara Vista sewers, people articulated that if they've got a grinder pump instead of a gravity sewer connection, there were different costs and there was some inherent unfairness. And the town looked at that and they went through the legislature to sort of balance it a little bit, whether it was perfectly balanced or not. So I've been sitting here thinking, as this develops and we get further down the road on sewers and other things, the town has the ability to, at any moment in time, come back and ask the Board of Health to change their regulation and/or decide, if there's a subset of people who put in an IA because they have to put it in, we come up, I'll just choose a peninsula, we're going to put another 800 sewer connections in, and 15 homes have got IAs. The town can come revisit wherever we're at right now and decide if, maybe you got to go to the legislature and say, if you put this in and it's functioning and you're maintaining it, you don't have to hook to the sewer, and you pay maybe a portion of the betterment, not the full betterment. I don't know. But these are the sort of things that can be looked at over time. That's the way I look at it. For now, the Board of Health's taken the first step, okay, which is we don't know when the sewers are coming, how fast they're coming, or when the outfall is going to be in place, or how big the sewer area is going to be yet.
okay? None of this stuff is pinned down. It's very amorphous in a lot of ways. So if you're putting in new construction and you're in an NSA, you've got to do this. As we get closer to doing other things, we will continue to discuss this. At least I would believe we're going to continue to discuss it and say, wait a minute, you got 15 people that have already done this. They're helping out. We shouldn't penalize them. And that, to me, it's analogous to we made the grinder pump decision, the E1s, and went back to the selectmen, and we said, can't remember how it worked out even, but somebody did a thing and they set a number aside, and then, and we're doing the same thing on the next one. So, I think the town has worked hard to be reasonable and fair, and that towns have to work inside budget constraints, and one of the big issues is how do we raise money for this overall program, and where does it come from, and, there's many parts to this. I went on, I'm sorry, shouldn't go on.
No, I just wanted to respond to one thing that Amy said, which is unfortunately in the same class of hyperbole as Bernie Madoff, which is be careful about using precedents as a reason for not change. In 1861, we'd had slaves for the order of 100 years, and it was decided that wasn't exactly fair, should we say, and it was changed. And no one said, well, you got to keep doing slaves because look at all those other slaves in the past that have been enslaved. So it would be absurd, right? And the town treasurer story was that I went to him when I first realized that there was this discrepancy in my mind. And he agreed with me, and I think saying he was in a state of shock is too strong a word, but he and town management at that point realized that this was tens of millions of dollars. There's a huge potential expense that the town hadn't even thought about, let alone budgeted for. And I think they saw it as impossible financially. So it's a huge political issue.
Kim, teeing you up.
Kim Combard from the Falmouth Pond Coalition and the Freshwater Pond Advisory Committee. Just a few quick points. One is the Falmouth Pond Coalition supported the Board of Health's requirement that folks who are going to be having increased flow or new construction on their house, substantial renovation, that they be required to install an IA. The idea, which the Buzzards Bay Coalition also talked about, is when are we going to stop digging a hole and making things worse? So if you're building a new house, you're going to install, are you going to install a Title V for $25,000 or $30,000? And the decision was, no, let's not continue to dig a hole by allowing people to install a Title V, which is the biggest contributor to the problems we're having in our waters. And they may have to pay another $25,000, the differential, in order to install an IA. And there is the state tax credit, and so there's some help that people get. So I think that was core to that decision at the Board of Health. Are we going to allow people to just keep installing Title Vs, or are we going to say no more Title Vs?
It's just my only objection. In fact, what Amy said about the non-impacted NSA, I have no problem with putting them there because that they will not have to put in.
I understand. So I think Steve's point just now that there's time in the future to deal with these folks who were required to put in an IA, and then 10 years, 15 years later, they have to pay the betterment, and maybe the town has to deal with that. In terms of this fairness issue, I think one of the first conversations I ever had when I met George Hoyfelder, whose name has been invoked, and I'm looking forward to seeing him soon over at the brewery. George commented to me, 11% of all the households in town are on sewer, 89% are on septic, and all of us who are on septic are subsidizing the people who are on sewer. I had my septic pumped today, paid $400 for it. So, yeah, all of us who are on IAs, who are on septic, you know, there's, and I think John Waterbury's point about an elephant in the room here, yeah. If you do the math, like we're going to spend $60 million to sewer 850 homes, something like this, right? Pretty soon. That's phase one. If the town were to provide a $10,000 subsidy to the 7,000 people who might be required to install an IA, that would be $70 million. $70 million. And you're getting 7,000 subsidized IAs. You could give them a $15,000 tax, $15,000 subsidy, that's $105,000. You give them a $20,000 subsidy, it's $140,000. We're spending
$140 million.
$140 million. $140 million. So it's $70 million with a $10,000 subsidy, $105 million with a $15,000 subsidy, and $140 million with a $20,000 subsidy. We're spending $60 million to sewer 811 homes.
I just want to make sure you get your math right,
Yeah.
okay? So, on the sewer project at $60 million, right? We're getting a percentage of that money back from the Cape and Island Trust Fund. We're charging betterments for another large component of it.
Right.
So although we go to town meeting and say we need $60 million because you have to have that borrowing authority to go forward, the actual cost to the town at the end of that exercise, just to keep your numbers working right.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull a number out of my head. Amy's probably going to correct me, but it's going to be $15 million to the town. Town's going to incur a $15 million cost out of a $60 million authorization.
Okay. So
I'm just.
Okay. So even using your number.
No, but the numbers are manageable. The subsidy numbers are still manageable.
Yeah.
I just wanted. I like to keep everybody.
Okay. So use your number. $15 million gets us 800 sewered homes. $15 million. And for and to get 7,000 for with a $10,000 subsidy is going to cost us $70 million.
I'm not arguing with your math.
I mean, we think nothing of spending all this, massive amounts of money on the sewers. And I guess the last thing I'll just say is that with all of the septic, this move to IA septics, if we don't push these companies to figure out how to treat phosphorus, and we're putting hundreds or thousands of IAs in the ground that don't treat phosphorus, we're just missing a big opportunity. So I know companies are starting to experiment with it, but I think this committee, the Board of Health, our Freshwater Pond Committee, the Select Board, we have to try to encourage these companies to figure out this technology. Whatever you can do to help with that would be important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tammy Gilbert with the West Falmouth Village Association. I just wanted to say thank you. I appreciate the fact that you are thinking along these lines about fairness, because as you know, the entire town, all of the taxpayers are paying for the sewers, and now West Falmouth in particular, I think a lot of people in West Falmouth are going to then have to bear the burden of putting IA septic systems in as well. So I appreciate that you're having these conversations. I understand that it may be a little bit premature, and when we do get into the watershed planning, we can have, some additional talks. Appreciate that. One thing I did want to mention, I received an email today from the Association to Preserve Cape Cod, and they were talking about, I'm wondering if IA septic systems, urine diversion, sewers, are these the only things in our toolbox? The PRBs that Ed and I had a discussion about recently as well. But the Association to Preserve Cape Cod sent out an email this morning. Is anybody aware of what they're doing over there with Mashpee, Wakeby Pond?
Yes.
And an amphidrome treatment system that will reduce nitrogen and phosphorus in the wastewater of over 200 homes near and along the northern shore of Wakeby Pond.
Yes.
Have we considered anything such as that? I don't know anything about it.
Okay, so the glam camping on Sippowisset Road,
Yeah.
they have an amphidrome system.
Oh, they do?
They
Okay.
do. And,
Basically a cluster IA?
well, no, so there's several treatment plants. So we always talk about the West Falmouth treatment plant, and we talk about the New Silver Beach treatment plant. But there are a number of other privately owned and operated and maintained treatment plants in Falmouth.
Okay.
Seacrest has got one.
Okay.
Atria Woodbrier's got one. What's the name of the campground? I keep saying glam camping, but somebody, anyways.
Auto camp.
Auto camp. Those are the three that come to my mind. There's another one at the other campground. So this is a system where there's a tight group of homes around this pond. They're building a collection system to gather that. And when they refer to it as being underground, it's not treating, so we project that if the town sewers everything that they should sewer and ties it all together, it's around 3 million gallons that would get treated, okay? Initially, it's 1.5 or 1.7. The Mashpee system, I don't have the numbers in front of me, you research things, but my guess is it's probably 60 or 70,000 gallons. The amphidrome systems, you can get them up to about 160, okay? 160,000 gallons a day, so it'll take care of a group of homes, a cluster.
So could we maybe consider something like that in the watershed plans for like?
I think over time, we in the right location, the thing that pops to my mind right now is there is a neighborhood.
Treetops is another one that might consider that at some point.
Treetops, but there is a neighborhood to the north of Wacoit Bay on the Mashpee line. It is a very dense neighborhood. It's really far away. The trick is always finding a piece of land that you can put that system into, and then on these small systems, you can't just leave them running on your own. Somebody's got to be there and watch them and take care of them. So I applaud Mashpee for tackling the situation they have. There are several types of systems you can get. You can get rotating biological contactors, you get the amphidrome system, you can get, there's a number of systems. So the fundamental rule is that if you have more than 10,000 gallons a day of wastewater, you can't be permitted by the Board of Health. You have to be permitted by the DEP. So Sachs and Partners presented a plan for a certain type of system because they were over the 10,000 gallon per day number. So yeah, in the right locations, I would think we'd look at it. But to date, if you look at the plans we have, they're very dense neighborhoods on the southern peninsula. And there's very little land. I mean, if you drive down Mara Vista, where would you find 4 acres of land that's not already occupied by some dwelling? The challenge, Amy has got the patience of a saint some days because she spent the better part of a year and a half trying to find a location for a pump station for the next phase of sewers going in. And it was agonizing.
Yeah.
But yes, we're not opposed to that concept. At least I'm not opposed to it. But it's got to be the right neighborhood, okay?
Okay.
From the plans that we did before, and I'm speaking only for myself because we haven't talked about this in the board, but we did look at, up in the Megansett area, there's a clustered neighborhood up there. And the question is, where would that go to a wastewater plant? That's a long ways to go. There may be an opportunity up in that area with other things that are going on to put a system like that in there once we get to it.
But what I'm hearing is that you are aware of that technology or that type of system, so that's great. And, perhaps when we do get into this next phase of looking at individual watersheds, maybe there's something more we can consider besides just these tools in the toolbox, because I can't imagine you asking 7,600 homeowners, regardless of what their financial resources are, to pay for.
I would characterize the Mashpee as not an IA system, but as a wastewater treatment.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if we can
And you
look at
know
any
your
available tools.
You know your neighborhood better than we do. Look around, and if you see a lot where you could imagine a tiny sewage plant being built, and then go ask the people that live next door to it if they agree with you.
Okay. We'll do that.
I will do this, because I do have a little bit of history doing this stuff. The Quissit campus of Hui has a little treatment plant on it.
Okay.
If you go there, there's a ballpark, the softball field. There's a little building next to it where they store some bats and balls. There's actually a small treatment facility inside that building, and the leaching field is under the ball field. So one possibility for the Megansett area, again, speaking only for myself and from some background I have, there's a ball field sitting right below the library. You go in there and you put a system in. You look at the cost for doing that. Amy doesn't want to run another treatment plant. I'm spitballing, Amy. This is dangerous when I do this.
I think it's good to talk about everything, but I have personally been opposed to the town having responsibility for lots of municipal treatment plants, because each one has a groundwater discharge permit, and when people hear about violations, they don't care the perspective. People don't care whether it's 1 million gallons per day or 60,000 gallons per day. The attention that you get for a small plant is the same that you get for a large plant. And the cost and the effort of maintaining small municipal treatment plants is not proportional to the flow.
Right.
And the issue you brought up about siting is another one. So we have one satellite treatment facility, and that's the New Silver Beach treatment facility, and it gets a lot of attention and requires a lot of effort that is disproportionate to its treatment volume. That's mine.
And the Amphidrome system at the auto park, if anybody read the paper, there was a 1.5 to 2 year long exercise with the Board of Health saying it's not working, it's not working, it's not working. They dug it up, they took it apart, they modified the system. It took them 2 years to get it working, and I haven't seen anything lately about how good it is working. Okay.
Mashpee has a lot of individual systems. They're private systems, and they have talked a lot about taking on some of those private systems and making them part of their municipal system. I personally discourage that for the town. I'm not saying it can't be discussed, but my perspective is siting and permitting and operating those plants is more difficult per gallon than centralized.
I believe you. Is it fair to summarize that by saying you're saying it's the opposite of an economy of scale?
That's my take on it, yes.
Historically, I can tell you from having sat through the whole planning process for New Silver Beach, it took us years to put that package together. So
20.
I think that's not something we want to use as a model in going forward.
So the next big one in town will be Saxon Partners, right?
They're going to have their own treatment
Right.
plant, yes.
Will they run it, or will?
Yes.
They will.
And that is different. I mean, it is, a private plant has different requirements not as far as their, this one will have, I hope, different discharge limits from others, but anyway, it's different for a private entity to run it and site it than it is for the town to do that.
Other comments or questions? Okay. I'm going to just move on to the second item, which we've sort of been doing. And I'm not asking for a big discussion right now on this. The Water Quality Management Committee initially got formed to evaluate alternatives. We looked at a number of things over the years as a committee. We are sort of a little bit at a crossroad in which, the wastewater division of the DPW has responsibility for designing sewers, constructing sewers, and they're going to have responsibility for getting the watershed plans developed and implemented. That doesn't mean we don't have a role of, comment and input, but I'm going to task everybody to think to what should this committee be doing? It's been rightfully pointed out to me by a couple of people that we seem to fill the agenda sometimes as opposed to having something that has to be done. Another, not picking on Tom here, another update on, shellfish or whatever. So I really want everybody to walk away today and spend some time so at our next meeting we can sort of say what's out there that fits this board's ability to look at things and advise the selectmen. I don't think it's our job to review sewer designs at this point. We have a consultant, does a good job on that. Amy's got people working in her department all the time. I feel borderline that we have, and no, all deference to the work you've been doing, Steve, to try to frame some of these questions. We should not be the board second-guessing other boards or others.
Why not?
I don't know that that's what this board should be doing. I'm asking you to all think about what this board should be doing and see how it fits in with what we've been doing, okay? That's the second thing here. I'm not asking to have a full-blown discussion right today, okay? Item 3, reports of members and staff. I'm going to go to Jonathan first.
Okay, so on October 17th, Steve Rafferty and myself went to the State House in Boston to provide oral testimony on David Vieira's House Bill 4082, which is proposing to change the Title V septic tax credit from non-refundable to refundable to make it more available to people who are probably in the low-middle income tax brackets and don't actually owe the state much money, if any money at all, so they really can't tap into that credit. So if the law was changed and people were required to build an expensive IA or for the hookup of their sewers, this would be another large pot of money that they could tap into that currently they can't because of their income situation. They just don't owe the state any tax money. So basically, it's a 3-minute presentation. It went well as far as I can tell. The committee, it was the Joint Committee on Revenue, heard this bill. They have, I think, till the second week in December to make a decision whether this bill continues on down the legislative process or it basically dies a quick death, and I guess we'd have to wait till the next legislative cycle to submit it again. In addition to the oral testimony, we submitted written testimony, and we've actually sent out notes to a wide range of people, different environmental groups, water quality groups from different towns, asking them to also submit written support of this bill. That has to be in by basically the end of November, so the committee has a chance to read it. And then in a recent email, Kim mentioned, I think it's a really good idea, hitting up the commercial sector, the banking sectors of town that are also would be impacted to try to get their letters of support. And that's something I would pose to the rest of the committee. What besides the usual suspects should we be targeting in the next couple of weeks to solicit their support for this bill?
Chamber of Commerce is the first thing that pops into my mind.
So I was hoping we'd have more time to discuss that today, but I realize that there's beer waiting, so I don't want to stand between a pint and this committee. But
Amy, if we, Jonathan will do this because he's really good at this. If he gets you how comment letters or whatever can go forward. You know, there's a certain person it's got to go to and an address. Can you post it on the site?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
So anybody that's watching or sitting here that wants to write a comment letter in support of this proposed change in the tax laws, there's a very specific way, person and way they have to send it in. And we'll also get.
So you want that posted on the Water Quality Management Committee website?
We'll get
Okay.
you that information
Yes.
as well, okay?
Yeah, if you provide the information about how to do that, we can get it posted on the Water Quality Management.
I'll send you an email tomorrow.
Yep, okay.
Or you can send it to this whole mailing list, whatever. You can send it to as many people as you want. You don't have to just, I mean, surely send it to Amy, but.
Yeah, I'm just doing
but
the fact,
also send it to everybody
Steve,
else.
I'm doing the fact that we're on TV. Somebody might see this and they might be like, this should get passed, and we need this, you know.
Yeah, I'll send it to the committee members. I thought we had provided some of that
Yeah,
information.
we did. I just trying to reach out a little further right now. Okay.
You know, just, if I may add to that, we have a person here from West Falmouth. Tammy, thank you for being here. And I think you've got a newsletter going out in a couple of weeks. Yes. And I think neighborhood associations like that. I think you said you had 600-odd people on the list that will get that message. So, you know, include people like that and, you know, Falmouth Heights, Mara Vista, and whatever other organizations there are, T-Ticket Civic, you know. Wherever there is, there's a group of people that are interested if they understand the problem. So I think you got to do two things. Give them how to do it and why.
Yep.
Just be
In a
sure to.
very few bullet points.
Yeah, we have
Be sure to explain clearly the difference between refundable and non-refundable.
his testimony was excellent, and we should probably put the testimony up on the website as well, Amy, okay? Because it's very succinct, it's to the point,
And I have the written testimony that I wrote on behalf of the committee members that was circulated to you guys several
when
weeks
we
ago.
voted support of it.
To the select board.
select
So
board.
that does talk about that. I'll send that out to, I guess it's really, if you guys know these associations, just send them to me. I will put together the letter that I could send to them that will have all the relevant information and any other associations that you can think of. I mean, now's the time to get this done, because by the end of November, the committee's probably going to run out of time.
yeah. I mean, the Association for the Preservation of Cape Cod, the Buzzards Bay Coalition, you know, sort of all the big ones responded.
Yeah.
I reached out to Board of Health and a number of the other Cape communities. At least one of them, I think, made a response. It's been on me, and I'm a little remiss, Jonathan, to, you know, just circle a second time saying, want to let you know, we hope you can get letters out, so.
Yeah.
And, you know, if it doesn't get out of committee this year, we'll make sure it gets out of committee next year. I mean, you know, Dave Vieira's been very supportive. By the way, in 74 years, I had never been to the State House. And I must say, I spent hours looking for the ballroom and couldn't find it.
Well, they're about to tear down the east wing.
I was going to say they need to add a big addition right on the front lawn, you know? Okay, other committee reports.
Yes. There's another chance, I know beer might be going to waste this evening, but there's another chance to mix wastewater and beer next Tuesday, the 4th, in New Bedford. Here's the announcement from the New Bedford Science Cafe. Some of our local talent, Dale Levitt, is going to be presenting along with Christian Petitpas, I think you pronounce her name, Amy? Anyway, they're having a meeting over there explaining the testing for water quality, and the beer's not free. It's the only thing that isn't free. There's free parking, free admission, everything else. And I'm planning on driving over that afternoon, and I'll be willing.
Are you going to designate yourself as a driver so I can drink to my heart's content?
Yes, I will be the dry, but anyone that's interested in going, it looks to be pretty good. Amy, I sent you a little blurb about.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I didn't know whether you wanted to show up or not. It seemed to be up our alley, shell fishermen and wastewater, treated wastewater. So anyway, if anybody's interested, I'll be heading over.
I'm going to jump in here just real quickly. The MEPA, all the comments have come back from MEPA. There are 16 or 18 comment letters, Amy? Are you going to post them? You should. You should. You know, I don't think you need to go too far. The comment letters are back. I would characterize them as being informative. You know, a lot of work has been done over the last year and a half, working with agencies. You always get one or two people that kind of spitball concerns about this and that. But the next step is the state looks at these comment letters, looks at everything we submitted, and then they define if an EIR is required and what the EIR will have to cover. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah. Will you let me speak for a moment on this?
Do we all want to let Amy speak?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh, yeah,
please.
okay.
So this is, I wasn't sure it was clear, but this is on the outfall. And we did get back 15 comment letters on the outfall environmental notification form. In general, I think, as you said, they're very helpful and thoughtful comments. There's a lot of support for the benefits of the outfall project, and there are requests for additional information and follow through. But there were no surprises, nothing that makes us say, oh, this is going to take a lot longer than we thought, or I was very happy to see that our scope for the next phases is not different now than we had thought it would be.
So what is the current timetable estimated?
So to start up of an outfall is 2031 to 2032 is the estimate.
Yeah, the schedule hasn't changed at all. We had close to a 2-year period between putting together the ENF, getting an EIR, preparing an EIR.
Right. So we have a request for funding at this November town meeting, as we've all discussed, for funding of the next phases of this, which is the EIR and the conceptual design of the outfall itself. And the next step in, just by the beginning of next week, the MEPA analyst for the state is reviewing all these comments, and he will issue a letter that says what it's scoping the EIR. So I look forward to receiving that and moving on.
Great, thank you.
Never sure what committee you're on, Ed. You got anything?
Just a couple of quickies, because everybody seems to be rather antsy to do something else. The DEP website is a very interesting place, and I just meandered in there for the latest performance data on IAs.
Is that Barnstable County?
No, DEP.
Okay.
This is IAs, statewide. Nitro, the Cadillac system in everybody's estimation, the data they have through part of 2025, 57 installed systems. 84% are meeting 19 milligrams per liter. Only 54% are meeting 11, which is somewhat disconcerting. The Nitrex, similar but competing technology, only 9 systems. 100% of them are meeting 10 milligrams. Holy moly. You know, they are way low on an installed base, but the performance of the few they have is very, very significant. I was disappointed to see how poor Nitro did.
Well,
Only half are meeting 11.
Can I make one comment on that? Because I
Yep.
think a lot of the Nitrex systems are clusters.
Don't know.
And-
No, these are small, under
These are all
2,000
individual?
gallon per day, so
Just right.
single-family homes.
Okay.
What does that mean legally and bureaucratically as far as Nitro E getting Banner approval?
Doesn't look like they're there. I don't know what the percentage of non-compliance would
So
throw them out.
I want to answer this question. So if they have 57 installations and they go for full approval, they'll get approved for a certain number based upon the data.
Right.
They won't get approved for 8, they'll get approved for some number.
11, 15, or 19, you know,
But what if it's not 10?
then
They'll
it's
they'll
not
approve it for what it performs
and
at.
it won't meet,
And what's the definition of banner?
10.
10, right?
yes.
Yeah.
So then, is there anything that meets banner?
Not yet.
Not anywhere, yes.
Not full approval.
Need to
Yeah.
get more nitrix systems.
Nitrix would need 50 for 3 years minimum that meet the
So
level.
that sounds like a long way off. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, because they're not in any hurry to
and
install.
Nitro E sounds like a long way off because they don't have the statistics.
That was disconcerting.
So anybody, I just want to, so this whole process goes like this. Anybody can come back and say, you approved me for 12. I now have more data because we tweaked our systems, we did whatever, and we now want to get approved for whatever. But this is useful stuff to understand that they're not lined up to be under 8 right now, 8 or under. They're not lined up to be there.
Or even
So
10.
they're going to approve for something.
One other technical, is there any trend? In other words, is Nitro E getting better over the years? Or is it random?
Seems to be, but it's all over the place. I mean, there's a chart. And you can see.
It doesn't look like a trend.
No, it's not impressive at all. But the other systems are even worse. So, I mean, it's just, the technology's great. It's a hell of a lot better than what's been out there. It's much better than Title V.
John and I have got probably too much knowledge about the FAST system, which everybody put in, and, they're approved for 19, and, if any one of the systems in Falmouth is making 19, it's a good day. They typically are running 23 to 25.
Yeah.
Okay?
And the question with the nitros is, if you've got one that's making 20, did it have an input of 200?
Right. Yeah. You're not back to the mass loading again.
Absolutely. I mean, but this is what DEP utilizes to make their decisions,
Yep.
so.
Yep.
Just point of information. I've got others, but I won't bore you with them tonight.
Well, it's also relevant because
Why don't you share the link to the website to all of us so we can go dig into it ourselves?
massdep.org.
let me point out that Kim isn't still here. John Kaufman showed some numbers, correct me if I'm wrong, about how urine diversion was in the same ballpark as 10 milligrams, right?
It depends on if all the urine's being captured.
Yes, but it has a good shot at it.
If all toilets are being urine diverted and all you're getting is gray water, yes, I mean, Hilton Earl were 8.7 ppm or milligrams per liter
There
nitrogen.
were a lot of people, including me, who used to walk around thinking that 2 or 3, I mean, we were just wrong, thinking that 2 or 3 of the IAs had a good shot at getting to 10, and urine diversion was way up at 20 or 30 or something. But in fact, it could actually be the other way around.
Good. Okay. Kristen, where are we at with getting approval of informational release on the PRB?
So we have approval from the funding agency. We're just waiting to figure out how to collect funds for the town, should there be funds.
So,
That was on your to-do list.
I know, I'm sorry, but there was an issue that we couldn't announce anything until whatever
Approval.
announcement we wanted to make was approved.
Yes, we got approval.
It's approved? Go ahead, Ed.
We have been talking about PRB grant for Snug Harbor in West Falmouth. Tammy and I have talked about it. I've been talking to a lot of the neighbors. We have been approved for the funds. We have the money. We have an approved press release by the federal government, and we're just going to try to tweak that to get something out to the community at large. But we do have funding to put in a PRB. Kristen and others are working very diligently on a volume of paperwork to get the permits. Concom is next and working to get on their agenda a little later on this year. So hopefully we can build something next year.
And once again, the idea there is, there's going to be some wood chips, and there's going to be some vegetable oil, and it's a bit of an experiment, but it's probably less of an experiment than the Shorewood one. It's more targeted and more specific, and part of it is looking at.
Well, I think scale-wise, the ones we put in to date are small scale and not large enough to have a real impact on the receiving water. And I think that we know that the majority of loading coming from the wastewater plants coming into Snug Harbor, and we sited this thing, so hopefully it will intercept that plume. And so it could have a real impact on the water quality in Snug Harbor and in West Falmouth Harbor. That's the hope.
Minutes. Tom, excellent job. Kristen, excellent job.
No, I just, that's Kristen's stuff. All I'm doing is a little trimming around the edges.
Did you have your hand up? Tammy, did you have your hand up?
I was just going to say,
You got to go to the mic. You got to go to the microphone. Sorry.
It's
You're
also
on
my
TV and famous
understanding,
now.
sorry, Tammy Gilbert, West Falmouth Village Association. It's also my understanding that you do have proof of concept with this technology for the permeable reactive barriers, correct? And is it correct that they're in 3 different places in town? Shorewood Drive, Childs River, and then Wacoit?
Yes, in 2005, we put in 2 test barriers in the Wacoit system, one at the head of the bay, just on the, the reserve site. And that one's about 20 meters long, and then another one in the Childs River. Yeah.
Okay. So that was 20 years ago,
Yes.
and they're still working?
So the one at the head of Wacoit Bay still seems to be working quite well. And the one in Child, it's, we put these in with a backhoe. It was not done in a particularly, what do I want to say? Using best engineering technology.
I would jump.
Augers?
We did a demonstration at Shorewood.
Right, but that's-
using the oil.
But going back to the ones in Wacoit.
Yeah.
By the time we got to the Childs River, the tide was high, and we could not get the wood chips deep enough to intercept the plume using the technology we had, okay? So it worked for a while, because initially the wood chips leach a lot of dissolved organic carbon, so that dispersed through much like the technology of the emulsified vegetable oil, where you have a carbon source that's a liquid, and it kind of seeps around through the sediments. So that's the technology that was employed at Shorewood.
Okay.
And there, I guess we put in 2 doses, and one of those doses is supposed to be 2 years. It's what, 5 years now? 5 years later, it's still working. So
It's still
that's
working.
encouraging.
Okay.
Yeah. So with the vegetable oil and/or the wood chips, they have a finite life. And part of the exercise is how long do they go before somebody's going to come back and replace the wood chips or put more oil in. There's one further down the Cape that's at the junior high school, is it?
In Orleans.
New Orleans. So and there's a couple in Rhode Island as well at this point.
Yeah, and there's some in Long Island as well.
There's several in Long Island.
So the technology does definitely work, and the key seems to be locating these things in the right spot, where you understand the groundwater flow and where you know there's high concentrations of nitrate. And in the case of West Falmouth, we also know that the size of the plume, the amount of nitrogen in the plume, should be decreasing, because back in 2005, we improved the wastewater plant
Right.
operations by adding tertiary treatment. And so that vastly reduced the concentrations in the effluent there. But it takes a long time for that water to move from the plant down to the shore. So the plume may continue for some time. And so the purpose of this PRB is to intercept that plume in the meantime.
Right.
Is that fairly said, Amy?
No, it's, you can go up and counter this, Amy, if you want to. The town monitors, they have monitoring wells, and there's definitely, in the sort of upper layer at Snug Harbor, there is nitrogen.
Right.
It's not entirely certain that it's from the wastewater plant because of the way the rainwater pushes the groundwater down, and when you go deeper into the groundwater, the numbers tend to correlate more with what we think the treatment plant should be pushing out. But we're putting this in that place because, much like we learned at Shorewood Acres, we saw that for several gradient homes, the PRB is working really good. The shallower wells at Snug Harbor are showing a high enough concentration of nitrogen in the groundwater in the upper layer to justify putting these in, and we think it's going to help with some legacy issues from the treatment plant, although the question is the nitrogen we're seeing from the treatment plant? Other data would say it's not necessarily from the treatment plant, but there's enough of a concentration because of the way the groundwater is flowing in that area from upstream homes. We can now see whether the wood chips or the emulsion works best and lasts longest. That's where we're really at.
Steve, the thing that Ken said second to last is the most important thing. It's site-specific. It's not like, with IAs, if one or more of these companies gets their act together and figures out how to do it, you can put it in your yard, I can put it in my yard, anybody can put it in their yard and it will work, like a car. These things only work in certain places. Even if they get theirs working perfectly there, it doesn't mean necessarily that you can take it, and because I'm assuming you're thinking the same, gee, I was wishful thinking about the Shubal Pond project and the Amphidrome. Now, maybe PRBs is my savior. It may not be your savior because you may just not have the right groundwater concentration.
Yeah, but I mean, you do have some proof of concept, and we're just happy that you're taking the initiative there. That's been a problem for a really long time, so.
It's not like it will wipe out this graph, and we won't need sewers, and we won't need IAs, because we just put a few PRBs around.
No, totally understand that.
With respect to
Completely
West
understand.
Falmouth Harbor itself, I think there is a possibility that this could have significantly improved
Yes.
water quality going into West Falmouth Harbor.
Right, great.
There's a lot of evidence that says there's a significant plume there. It's coming from several places. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't
It's a
matter where
lot
it's
of
coming
nitrogen.
from. We need
And
the
this can
harbor to
stop
be
it
cleaned up.
and make a significant improvement. Will it
Right.
eliminate everything? Absolutely not.
Right.
Can it be used elsewhere? Maybe, but it's very site-specific.
We do
That's a
hope to
great
get
thing.
it in deep enough that it is intercepting wastewater.
How deep does the auger go with the,
Can I make a suggestion? I bet you your association would love to learn about this,
okay.
okay? Ken,
Happy to talk to.
yeah, why don't you find it, let us know when you have a meeting, and
Yeah, that's
we'll get a
great.
couple people to know about this. Now, I'm going to make my pitch. The town's required to make a matching grant. You know, it's not all paid for through the grant. So to the extent that West Falmouth Association or anybody else who would like to participate, we're going to use town forces for some of the stuff, but we're going to probably put up a nice sign, and you could get your name on the sign.
Oh.
Okay? Krista,
You mean like library brick?
We could.
no, I mean, go to the Coonamessett project. They, you know, if you went by the Coonamessett project, there was everybody and their brother got their name on there. They didn't have to put up $500,000 or anything, but, you know, they had some skin in the game. So,
Anyway, happy to.
We'll
we
work
should
to
talk
get the
later.
word.
Okay, thank you.
Get the word out.
Thank you.
yeah. You okay? I'm okay. Okay, all right. Now, did I have a motion on the minutes? Any comments?
I move they be accepted as written.
Second.
All those in favor signify, any comment? Any discussion? Signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, we take one more motion.
Thanks for the support.
Move to
For the
adjourn.
minutes.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thanks for your patience, Katie.